So here we are. Thank you, everybody, for coming to our web live interview here today with Ryan Cote. He is founder of SEO is it functional medicine SEO? Is that right?
Yeah, functional medicine SEO, correct.
Wonderful. Yeah. So he is an expert in online marketing, online presence, and specifically SEO. We're going to be able to have a wonderful opportunity. He's very openly letting us pick his brain about this subject in ways that you can empower yourself, your business, and essentially your clients by making yourself available, making your message known online so that people can find your services. So thank you very much for coming today. If you're checking this recording, thank you so much for taking the time to gather valuable information from this recording. And Ryan, would you like to maybe share a little bit about yourself and how you help folks, and maybe a little bit even of your story? What led you into the space of helping functional health professionals with online presence?
Yeah, thanks, Bill. Yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks, everyone, for listening. Yeah, my name is Ryan Cote. Just on a personal note, I live in New Jersey, lived here my whole life except for 4 years in Pennsylvania for college. I am married for 15 years and have three daughters, 11, 9, and 7 as we record this. And so that keeps me busy. A lot of sports and all of that, softball tonight, dance tomorrow, and all of that. So yeah, I've been doing SEO for a long time. I mean, 15 years. I've always dabbled in the online world. I've had e-commerce websites that I've built and sold. I've done affiliate marketing, Google Ads, SEO, content creation. I've always just, eBay back in the day, always just kind of gravitated towards it. When I started my business in 2011, it was more SEO for general companies. There was no specific, like niche, as they say. And I decided about 3 years ago to start to really niche down. And I had a fair amount of like functional medicine, like natural health, wellness companies, regenerative and aesthetics and functional medicine. And I was like, I like this niche because A, I think it's the future. Okay. And B, there's a certain level, like, with SEO, like you want to do something that you want to do work that means something, like most people want to do work that means something. And I felt like I had like I tied helping my clients who help their clients as something important, because if we can help one of our practitioners get more patients and they improve their health, to me, that means something. And so I decided for those two reasons to really double down. Not that I have other clients outside of this space, but this is really my focus. And it's where majority of our clients are from now. And so that's where I'm at today.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ryan. And, I see this a lot with those of us who are in business support roles like marketing or finance or other things. For those who decide to really focus on helping like the functional health space, usually there's a significant story behind that, it's usually a significant story behind seeing the value of functional health services. So I'm wondering if, I'm kind of looking for that deeper why, like, what is it that led you to see the value of what functional health professionals are bringing to the world?
I've always been interested in health and fitness. I've always been one that's avoided taking medicine. I can't remember the last time I took medicine, like traditional medicine.
Mm.
And so I've always been like, going back to, I remember taking my first vitamins when I was like 12 years old. The Source of Life, I think is Life Source of Life, the big yellow and brown bottles. The pills were ginormous. I still don't know how I got them down. It was an effort, but it was huge horse pills. And so I remember taking them at 12 years old. And then even like high school and college, like health and fitness, working out, lifting weights, sports. I worked at GNC when I was through college. And so I've always just gravitated towards health and fitness. I even can think of right when I graduated college and my first job, not in this business, but something else. And I remember still waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning every day before I have to go to work. And I was working on an ebook, and it was called Simple Health 123. I wish I kept that darn thing because that'd been really cool to read now. But I wrote an ebook called Simple Health 123. I was trying to sell it. I don't think I really sold any. It was more like a learning process, if anything. But yeah, I've always just gravitated towards health and fitness and wellness and subscribing to certain magazines. So I think that's a big part of it.
Wonderful. Yeah, that's awesome. And I share an athletic background as well. And that's ultimately, I realized pretty quickly the fuel that I put into the car affects performance, right? So I think this is something that leads a lot of folks who have an athletic background into the functional health space. So wonderful. So yeah, one of the main things I wanted to ask you about was because I help a lot of folks who are either just starting their business or thinking about starting their business, or maybe they're having a clientele, but they're simply not, filling their clientele the way that they need. So, a lot of folks are on budgets. So what can someone do to attract attract clientele effectively online? And, I suspect, SEO is a major part of this, but maybe, within the realm of SEO, which of course, for those of you who don't know, is search engine optimization. And gosh, I'm wondering if we just want to start there and then go into what folks in a budget can do to help boost their online presence.
Yeah, I'll explain what SEO is, and then we can go into some, because SEO, it can be very technical, but then there's things that are part of SEO that aren't really technical, where if you're on a budget, you can do it yourself. It doesn't require someone like me. But SEO stands for, like you said, search engine optimization. It's the organic side of the search engine. So if you go to Google and you do a keyword search, so someone's searching for functional medicine doctor near me or whatever the keyword is, if you do a search, you'll see the top are ads, the bottom are ads, and you'll see it says ad next to it. So top are ads, the bottom are ads, and then in between, that's the organic section of, we're talking about Google right now. That's the organic section of Google. That's what SEO targets.
The organic section, I love it. Yeah, we're all looking for that organic section. Whenever we get into the grocery store, it's like that's where we're going, right?
Exactly. So SEO, you're optimizing your website, you're optimizing your Google Maps listing. Those are two equally important things to get into the organic side of Google. There's Google.com, there's Google Maps. For Google.com, Google integrates the maps and the regular listings. Not to get into the weeds here, but the basic idea is you're optimizing your website, you're optimizing your maps listing to try to show up more higher up in the organic side of Google. So when someone is searching for functional medicine, whatever the keyword is, that your website is one of those choices that they can click. And so usually, it means like trying to get to the first page. Some of the keywords with enough search volume, people will go to page 2, but the lion's share is definitely the first page. So that's what SEO is, and there's the whole process you follow to optimize your website, to optimize your maps listing. I'll pause there if you want to ask any questions. Otherwise, I'll go into like some things that they can do.
Yeah, well, that was actually where my mind was starting to lead. I think that is a natural next step.
Okay, perfect. So with SEO, it's changed a lot. It really started changing like 2011 really, and before and earlier it was honestly very easy. It started to change really in 2012, where Google started to take their algorithm very seriously in terms of preventing people from trying to manipulate the search engines, if you want to use that word, like optimize to get higher rankings, because they want to just show what they want to show. And so
like using a cheap trick to show up first, like
exactly
just pumping your blog with words that are meaningless or something like that. Would that be an example?
Yeah, like stuffing your page with keywords. There's been some crazy tactics I've seen in the past, like basically, this is not around anymore, but some people back in the day would show one version of your site to the Google bots, which is just riddled with keywords and nonsense that just has all these keywords. And then to someone like me or you would see a different version. And so they were trying to trick Google to show their site higher, because when Google visited the site, they would see a whole bunch of keywords and content, and they were like, oh, this site is relevant for these keywords. But in reality, it was just a trick. That obviously no longer happens. But within SEO, so going back to like the core fundamentals, it's a matter of understanding what keywords your patients or potential patients are using. Okay. And how do you do that? Well, of course, you might have some ideas, but there's tools that will tell you plug in the keyword and it'll tell you how much search volume the keywords have, other relevant keywords. And I can get, there's a lot of, it's a big market now. There's a lot of keyword tools out there. You have to pay for it. But it's a core part of SEO. So you want to make sure you get it right. Like, am I optimizing for keywords that are relevant, that have search volume, that aren't overly competitive. And so the keyword tools are a worthwhile investment. And there's some as cheap as like less than $30 a month. And you don't have to use it forever. You just get what you need for it and then you cancel.
Gotcha.
So
okay, if I can pause you on that, like
yeah.
what would be some of these tools that you recommend for somebody on a budget? I know I just came across one the other day called Answer the Public. Someone in one of my mastermind groups was recommending that for getting a sense for what people are searching for. Not sure if you're familiar with that one, but
Yep.
maybe other ones that you recommend to folks.
Sure. And actually, I shouldn't say they're all paid. If you sign up for Google Ads, which is the paid side of keywords, we're talking about organic right now, but Google Ads is the paid side. If you sign up for a Google Ads account, they do give you their keyword planner tool for free. And so that it lacks a lot. It doesn't tell you like the competitiveness of it in terms of SEO. So it does lack that key part of it, but it will show you search volume and other keywords. So if you don't want to absolutely spend any money and you're okay with not seeing how competitive the keyword is for SEO, you can use the Google's keyword planner. But if you're talking about paid tools, we actually really love Ubersuggest. Ubersuggest
And I think this is actually by Ubersuggest. And maybe maybe it's a new like front name for it. I'm not sure.
Yeah, so Answer the Public is a tool that shows you keywords around questions. So what are frequently asked questions that people are asking? And so that's a whole other new part of how you create content and the keywords you optimize for. Ubersuggest or SEMrush or keywordtool.io. There's some others, but I'll just say Ubersuggest because that's what we personally use. And the prices range from $30 a month to like over $100, depending how much you need. But that is one that I'll recommend because we personally use this. That would make sense. And so you plug in the keyword, and it gives you, it gives you information on the keyword, search volume, how competitive it is, and then it gives you related keywords. You can plug in one of your competitors' websites, and it'll tell you what keywords they currently rank for to give you more ideas. It has a really nifty site analyzer that's not part of the keywords, but it just analyzes your site to throw back any errors that you have you're not aware of. It's a really good tool. So I would recommend Ubersuggest for finding keywords. Answer the Public is really good for finding questions that people are asking, like what do I do about back pain or whatever the case is, or hair loss, whatever. And then Keyword Planner, Google's Keyword Planner as part of Google Ads if you don't want to absolutely spend any money on the tools.
Got you. Okay, so it's like these are pretty specific tools, and I don't want, for those who are not familiar with this territory, who may not even have like a marketing strategy yet, maybe we can kind of zoom out and see from a higher view, like where does one start when even developing a marketing strategy? At what point do they start picking up these tools?
I mean, these tools that we just mentioned, they're like the beginning stage of SEO. It's like the first step because you have to understand what keywords you're optimizing for. And there's different types of keywords. You can go after functional medicine keywords, like someone specifically looking for functional medicine, or you can go after keywords that are like conditions and symptoms, like the things they're going through or feeling or experiencing. And they might not even know at that point that functional medicine is an option. So it's different people at different stages of the cycle.
Right. They may not call it functional medicine, right? They may just be like, hey, yeah, I got back pain, or hey, I am depressed, I have no energy, and I'm constantly fatigued, right? Or I have all this acne and I look ugly in the mirror. Like, what do I got to do to fix that, right? So and really, I think what I'm realizing is that maybe even a precursor to knowing what some of these things to search for is really having a clear idea of what clients you're trying to attract, what clients you're in best position to serve. And it really, I think, gets into this, it seems like the precursor for doing any kind of SEO work is really having a clear understanding of what your position is in the market. What niche are you serving? And I know there's a lot of views on choosing niche, but it seems, I hear this story over and over again, that once a functional health professional decides like, okay, I think I'm ready to niche a little bit and focus on these certain sets of problems, that's when their businesses really start to take off. And I'm wondering if you've observed the same thing, and even what you might say to speak to somebody who's on that cusp of deciding their niche, and what bearing that has on developing an SEO strategy?
I think knowing what you want and where you want to go is 100% the case. Like we've had some clients that do functional medicine and chiropractic care, and they were trying to phase out of the chiropractic care and get more into functional medicine. So of course we're going to gear our keyword research and our effort more on the functional medicine content and keywords. Otherwise, you're just kind of like, spraying and praying, as they say. And so I think having a clear idea of what you want, for sure, that definitely is going to help, because then it gives you like a guiding light of where to focus on. In terms of niching, I mean, I could talk about it on behalf of like my business. It's definitely helped a lot, because now like the site is super relevant. The people that I talk to, like you, super relevant. The content we create, it's very hyper relevant. So when someone comes to our site, it's very clear who we work with, and then all the clients that we have builds instant credibility. And so I've seen it. It does take time, like that beginning part where you're trying to get it going. But once you have enough, like in terms of the doctors and the practitioners, once they have enough experience and enough, like, clients, patient success stories, and it just starts to snowball. It just takes time. But it's all about just relevancy. Even if I think about like from Google's point of view, their job is to rank on relevancy. They're trying to rank the most relevant pages, are the most quality pages. And generally those pages are the ones that are real niche and focused, because they're the experts. They're the thought leader on that specific topic. Of course, there's always outliers, and Google's algorithm sometimes it shows things that doesn't make sense. There's a certain randomness to it, but usually that's the case.
Got it. So I guess a key question here is, can someone be successful in like an online marketing strategy with SEO involved? Can they be successful without necessarily having a niche? If maybe, because, maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago, being an integrative or functional health professional was novel, right? It was unique. That was sort of a niche. Whereas now it's like, there's tons of people doing that in different modalities. And so it's really like, we almost have to kind of find ways to diversify and differentiate our services from what else they're finding. So if someone doesn't choose a focus, and they're serving the masses with their service, is it possible to be successful with an SEO strategy? And if so, how would that work?
I mean, there's a lot of our clients that have different specialties. They'll do aesthetics, and they'll do functional medicine, and they'll do regenerative. It just depends on, it depends on the site, like having enough content to support each group. Because in the end, like we're still talking about in the health sphere. It's not like we're saying someone's trying to become a functional medicine doctor and an accountant. That wouldn't make sense. It's like they're still in the health and wellness and medical field. And so it really comes down to just having enough content and the structure of the website to support all of that. And so typically is you have all your services on one page, and you've got different sections for each service that outlines more content, how you work and meet the doctor and all that. So as long as you have enough content, enough blog content, enough service page content, and you give SEO enough time to work, it still is fine. It's just niching down. It's just more hyper relevant. But again, like we're still under the same health and medical field.
Right. And I'm starting to see it now. So for, say, a local, someone who's working primarily locally or regionally, if you have sufficient blog content and content on your website that kind of talks about these various health problems or conditions that someone might actually be searching for help with, whether it's thyroid or whether it's these other things, right? Or hormone replacement therapy. It could be a number of things. As long as you may not be niched, but you may have like a little bit of each of those. You might have something on weight loss, you might have something on thyroid, you might have something on digestive issues or specific digestive issues like ulcerative colitis or something like that. So if you have a pretty robust set of content in your blog, then that's what's going to draw people to you. It doesn't necessarily have to be all on one subject, although that would probably be a more powerful magnet for those people, but it can still be functional, I guess we could say, for growing a local practice. Would you say that's accurate?
Yep, absolutely. And one of the techniques I was going to say for doing SEO it's part of SEO, but you could do it yourself on a budget, is content creation. And so the types of content you want to create is what you just described. So you want to have content around the services that you offer. Okay. You want to have content around the conditions that you help with. Okay. So people will search both ways. And then you want to have blog content that goes really deep into your expertise. I know it's a lot of content to create, but I'm just kind of painting the ideal situation. So content on your services, content on the conditions that you help with, and then blog content that showcases your expertise. And that's typically lengthier content that, was clearly written by someone that has an expertise in the subject. It could be the doctor, the practitioner. It doesn't need to be someone else that could be just a writer that knows the subject well. But yeah, those three types of content, if you have that in your site and you're producing that content on a regular basis, well, the blog content on a regular basis, the other content's more of a one and done type of thing. That's going to be a very good step into the right direction, because eventually you're going to start to rank for certain keywords. If you're putting all that content out on your site and it's really hyper focused on what you're writing about, of course, it's eventually going to rank. And there's other things you can do to help it rank better, but that's a really good starting point. It's just getting that content out there.
Wonderful. Cool. So it's like, wow, my mind is firing off. I have like a couple things that I want to mention on that. One is, when they're writing these blogs, is there anything that they should bear in mind? Of course, they're talking about the conditions, but should they be strategic in any way about how they write it to optimize the SEO? That's the first piece. And then the second piece is, the most common pain point for practitioners, especially for solo practitioners who are wearing all the many hats of being a business owner, right? How much time do they need to dedicate to just kind of keeping this train moving forward and developing this thing out? Like, what do you recommend in terms of making it a manageable endeavor?
I mean, yeah, I guess we all have the same 24 hours in a day. It just depends on how those 24 hours are used. And yeah, there's different seasons of life where it's very busy. But if you're asking in terms of like a schedule, so you have the service pages and you have the conditions pages. Those are kind of like you get them written and then they're done. I mean, they might not be fully optimized, but at least they're up on the site and they have a chance of ranking. The blog content, I would go for at least 2 per month. I mean, that said, if you can only do 1 blog per month, of course, it's better than 0. But in ideal world, 2 to 4 per month is what we see works best. And so, yeah, that does take, I always recommend like daily, just write a little bit every day just to make it a habit, and then it won't seem so daunting as opposed to sitting down at a white screen to have to write 1,000 words or whatever the length of the blog is. And so just writing a little bit every day, develop the habit, and like anything gets easier, and then it just becomes like clockwork. Or you have someone in your office that you train to write it, and they just get some more experience, and then you've got someone that can write for you. And so there's different ways, of course, to outsource the content, or you write it yourself. Just everyone's schedules and interests are different. I forget the other question you asked me though. You asked me about the content. Oh, what they can do to make the content more effective.
Yes.
Okay. We like content around questions, frequently asked questions. That's where the answer the public comes in. Best case is the best sources to your patients. What are they asking when you get requests or inquiries from your site, inquiries from people that come to see you? What questions are they asking? That's like the best. And so we like writing content around questions that are being asked. We're seeing those rank very well in Google because Google's job ultimately is to answer questions. And so that's the best type of content. Also, when you write the content, make it skimmable, because just the truth of the matter is that people are not reading it word for word as much as we would like to think they are. They aren't. They're skimming. And so make it white space. Don't make it like a sea of text like The Economist magazine when you open it up, you're like, whoa, baby. Make it easy to read. Break it up with subheadlines, short paragraphs. And the good thing about short paragraphs is that featured snippets. So that's if you ever did a Google search, you'll see at the top there's like they do a box in black and they answer the question, and then below that is the actual listings, the actual search results. That little black box at the top that answers the question and it gives you the link to read more. That's called a featured snippet, or position 0, as some people like to call it, because it's like first page is search results 1 to 10. That's like position 0. That, it's up to Google to show it. Obviously, like they have like their own algorithm, but what we see work is giving Google something that is featured snippetable, that's the word. So basically like asking a question in a subheadline and then right below it, giving like a 2 to 3 words answer, and then expand more on it below, because then they can just grab that subheadline, the short little question, a short little answer, and that's what they can use for the featured snippets. You're making their job easy. And so that's one little trick for optimizing the content to make it more likely that you're going to show up for the featured snippet.
Nice. Good deal. So a couple of things here. One is just, the simple act, and it's not a simple act, but the act of content creation, just kind of writing a little bit every day. And maybe I'll just share something that has helped me, because it's like you sit down to write a monthly blog or a biweekly blog, and it's like, okay, yeah, it's like, where do I even start? It's kind of overwhelming. But this is one of the tips I learned from one of my mentors, is to actually, whenever you get one of those questions from your patients, that's kind of like one of these FAQs that, people out there are having that question rattling in their mind, right? Write it down and like document it somewhere. So I actually have a page in one of my programs. I use Notion to collect ideas and thoughts and organize like notebooks. It's similar to like Evernote or OneNote, but a lot more dynamic. So I have a mountain of ideas where I put those, or if I read an article that's cool, or if, I come across a quote that's cool that I feel like, can be expanded upon, like I'll write those, and those become my blog content, my social media posts. So there's mountain ideas, and you can just create a goal even of writing down 3 or 5 or even 10 ideas a day. And that way, when you're sitting down to a blank screen, you can look at this library of ideas that you've collected, and you got something to work with. So I'm not sure, I imagine you're writing quite a bit. Do you have your own processes for kind of overcoming, it sounds like you have a daily writing habit to overcome this sort of writer's block common obstacle?
Yeah, I'm similar to you. Like where I have another business called Morning Upgrade. It's around personal development, a podcast which you're going to be on soon. So for that, I use Google Sheets. So if I ever have ideas, I'll just add it to the Google Sheet. Because once you can't keep it in your head. It's like impossible. At least it is for me. And so totally. I like to keep a Google Sheet. But any habit like that, like writing a little bit each day, and then just when you have topics or ideas or you're getting questions, throw it somewhere, whether it's Google Sheets or whatever to-do list tool that you have. At this point, yeah, we do create a lot of content for clients. Topics will vary based on what their keyword goals are, what the questions are that they're getting. For some of our clients, they'll give us the topic that they want to write about because they want to take an active interest in choosing that. And then they'll give us key points to hit. And then we'll write it based on those key points, and then they edit it. So there's different ways of doing it. But I've seen it like anything. Like it's a creative muscle. The more you do it, the easier it does get. I know it seems like that wouldn't be the case because you're just writing, but it's like anything. Like you go into the gym, it's going to get a little bit easier, so you have to increase the weights. And so this is no different. It's a creative art that just gets easier the more you do it.
Totally. Yeah. Just, you get the flow going, and it's like, sometimes it's a hard time turning it off actually, right? I don't know if you had that problem, but
flow state.
Right. So like waking up at 4 a.m, like, man, I gotta write this down, because if you don't write it down, you lose it, right?
You know what I do? I with my phone, I'll just email myself something. I know that's like the best way to do it, but I just like it because it's nice and easy. So if I think of something, whether it's for my business or for a topic, I'll just email it to myself, and then I'll transfer that somewhere later. I should probably find a better way of doing it, like a to-do app, but I've been doing that way for so long that it's like a creature of habit. But yeah, just get it out of your head so you don't have to think about it.
Totally. And maybe I'll just share a quick trick here that's little known, that it takes some time to actually write out. And if you have like a full-blown concept in your head, it's like sometimes your hands can't keep up. So what I've resorted to doing is I might even if I scratch it out in my notes, like next to my bed, and like, then I got to do something like that. Otherwise I have a pile of these papers, right? So I actually, Microsoft Word has a dictate feature in it. So it's similar to Otter, but it's actually, I find it to be much more accurate than Otter. So I'll go into Google Word, click the dictate icon, which is in the upper right-hand corner, and I'll be able to verbally dictate into text of the program. And basically, as I'm going and as I'm speaking my notes or my draft into the program, I can kind of format it, because otherwise it doesn't really punctuate or create like sentences, or I can create, like, for instance, Ayurveda. Whenever I say Ayurveda, twist that word into all sorts
Oh,
of
sure.
contortions because it doesn't recognize that word, right? But yeah, so word, having these, yeah, I think the bottom line is having processes that are going to make it more efficient for you to convert ideas into, legitimate written framework and content that publish. So yeah, so content creation, that's another huge subject. But what I'd really like to know, Ryan, before we probably start taking questions here in a few minutes. What would you suggest for like a new entrepreneur who's just establishing their online presence? You have all these things. You have a Google My Business profile, which has a different name now, I think. They're probably calling it Google Maps. So you can correct me on that. You have an online website. At what point do you go from like a pilot website to like, a more robust website? You have your social media profiles. Like, what would you suggest, like, if you were just coaching like a new functional health entrepreneur and like, hey, here's like a sequence that makes sense, that's going to, be low budget. And, once you have a budget, maybe graduate into hiring somebody to help you with this or this component of it. What would you suggest as, I know it's hard to give a formula, right? But what would you suggest as a starting point?
I'll just say what comes to mind first.
Sure.
Definitely, obviously need to have a website. That's your home. Equally as important as your Google business page, Google Maps. Google Business just fuels Maps. It's the same. It's like Google's local directory tool that you have.
So
You establish.
how are those different?
Because, well, your website is your website. It's like your address. You go to,
Okay, we got the website, but Google Maps and Google My Business, are those different?
Google Business is where you like add your information to, and then that fuels Maps. And so, it's Maps pulls information from Google Business. It used to be called Google My Business. And so you verify your business in there. Okay. So they send you a PIN code mailer. Sometimes you can verify through phone. Sometimes they make you verify through video because they want to verify that you're a real business. And so because of all the spam they've dealt with. So sometimes it can be kind of annoying. Hopefully you just get the PIN code mailer, and then you get the code mailer, you put the PIN code in and you're verified. And so get your, I'm very big on Google Business. I think it's almost equally as important as your website, just because of how big Google is and how important local search is and maps and all that. And so you want to make sure that you register that listing, and then fully fill out the whole listing. Add photos, your name, your address, your phone number, your website, description, services. You have a question, Bill?
Yeah, just on that point, if someone's working virtually and they're working from home and they're not actually seeing somebody in their home and they don't want to disclose to the world where their address is, what do you suggest for those folks?
Yeah, it's so obviously Google Maps is most crucial for someone that has like a physical location, an office where they're seeing patients. That's like, but we recommend it for anyone, because you can still you can hide your address if you mark that you do not see patients at your home. They'll just hide your address and just show your city and your state. And so it's still important to have it because you want to have a presence on there. It's a good authority signal for your website. Also, keep in mind when you do a search for a company or a doctor's name, practitioner's name, typically that right sidebar is Google Business. It pulls it from there and it creates like a whole side panel for you. And so you want to make sure you're getting reviews and all that. You want to make sure that listing is fully filled out, because it's often the first touch point to that person. So if they're Googling you or your company, your office, they're going to see that typically first because it draws the eye there, because it's like a big visual section. And so you want to make sure that you've got good reviews and you're fully, photos of you smiling and just all the information, because that might be and often is the first impression. And so beside putting SEO aside, it's still very important. So make sure you fully fill out that listing, add photos, the Google Posts feature. It's sort of like Google's social media element of it. You can add posts which then show up in that listing. So share your blog content there. Just fully use the tool like you would a website. You wouldn't launch a website with like no text and no photos and all that. That wouldn't make sense. Well, this is the same thing. Don't launch it and just say, okay, I added my name, address, phone number, we're good. Like fully fill it out, get reviews. And so to me, that's equally as important as your website. So you've got your website, register your business with Google Business. Okay, those two things, fully fill them out. And then I would start adding content. it's hard to rank a really small site. Like, I've seen sites that are like one page that you just click the navigation, it just goes to the sections. It's like really hard to rank that, almost impossible. Start to build out your site, knowing that that's going to be a 12, 24, 36-month process. So just commit to writing blogs, make sure all your services and what conditions you help with are on there. To me, those are like the most crucial things. I mean, there's more to SEO. We can talk about link building, to the technical side of it, but I think, for the purpose of this conversation, I think those are good starting points. And then I look at phase two. So I don't do anything with social media. I personally can't stand it, but I can't give good advice there. I mean, I think it's important to have a strong profile on one of the networks because it's just the way it is. But to me, phase two is Google Ads. And so that obviously requires a bigger budget because you're paying someone to manage the ad account, or you're trying to learn it yourself, which takes a lot of time. And then you've got the ad spend to Google. So it can be more. The advantage there is that, SEO can take a long time and you're at the mercy of Google's algorithm. You own your website, but you don't own your rankings. It's a very fluid thing. Google Ads, you're paying for those positions. So it happens like that very quickly. Within hours, you're getting traffic from keywords that you want to show up for. It's not as simple as that, but just to be concise. And so that to me is phase two. You've got your website built, you've got your Google business listing fully filled out and verified, and you're getting reviews, you're writing content. And then phase two, once you start having some traction, is, in my opinion, is running some paid ads on Google for certain keywords.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, so we got a nice formula. Thank you for breaking that down. So I'd like to open it up for questions. I know I even have a few questions if we don't have people chomping at the bit here. If anybody has any questions, feel free to throw it in the Q&A or
Make sure they're easy questions.
Right. Right. Or you could throw it in the chat too. In the meantime, while we're waiting for questions, I got one that I'm chomping at the bit about. So I have a couple clients who are just brand spanking new in business, and they have websites, but their website's not like, even when you search for their website, it's not searching, or you have to basically type in the URL exactly to find them. Yeah. So you can't, you type in their name or you type in their business and it's like buried in like page 10 or beyond, so how do we get like a new website to list? What would you suggest for somebody to remedy that?
Yeah, the truth is that young websites, it does take a little while for Google to start to send it some traffic. It's just if it's brand new, they need to start trusting it before they'll send traffic to it. The best way is honestly going back to the content, is to start producing content, and then I would get your site also verified in Google Search Console. Google Search Console. It's a free tool by Google, and once you're in there, you can add your sitemap to Google, and then they'll weekly or whatever the cadence is, they'll visit the sitemap to see if any new content has been produced. So if you're on WordPress, just download the Yoast plugin, and Yoast will create a sitemap for you. You add that sitemap to Google Search Console. Can't say that. And as you add new content, it'll automatically update the sitemap, and then Google will be notified about it. In Search Console, you can also force Google to index new content. There's a field, there's a box at the top. You put the URL in there, hit enter, and there's a button that says request indexing. You click it, and then it automatically pulls it in. So the first job is really start creating content that Google can rank, and then tell Google about it by getting your site in Search Console. Maps, yep, start getting reviews. We talked about that. Google Business, start getting reviews, get the listing fully filled out. That eventually takes time, but eventually you'll start getting traffic from there. The other thing is really, is the link building that I mentioned. I didn't know if we wanted to talk about that.
Yeah, that actually was one of my other questions. So link building, or we hear about backlinks. What is that? What is the significance of that for getting traction with your website?
So the significance there is it's like a vote for your site. It used to be, honestly, when I mentioned that Google was very easy back in the day, it was all about just building links. It didn't matter how bad they were or spammy they were. You would just build backlinks. And
what is a backlink?
A backlink is another site linking back to you. So like, for example, if you've got your site on Yelp or your business on Yelp, and you've got your name, your address, your phone number, there's a spot for your website that creates a link from Yelp over to you. If you write an article for another blog, typically there's like a meet the author section with a link back to your site, that's a site that's linking back to you. So Google, in their eyes, it's like a vote for your website. And so if you've got a good site linking back
It's
to
like you got street cred with Google if you got your stuff on other people's websites linking to you. Is that right?
Yeah, because if they're linking to you because they want to share what you're putting out, and so it means something.
Right. They trust you. They value what you have to say. So Google uses that to determine your value and on your website, right?
Exactly. So start looking at ways to get backlinks. And so like any associations that you belong to typically, or they give you a link back to your site as part of your profile. Look for opportunities to write content for other blogs and make sure you're linking back to your site. Submit your business to the information you're giving Google Business, for maps. Make sure you're giving that information to all the major local directories. So Manta, there's a bunch of them, but there's all these like local directories where their job is to create a community of local sites, and you can get links from there. Typically, when you like sponsor an event or speak at an event, like I just spoke at an event recently, and we got a backlink from the site. And so it's called WorldLink. It's a great organization. Check it out. And so speaking, events, and then charities. If you give any money to charities, typically they have like a sponsors page where they're trying to, say thank you. And they usually have like your logo on there with the link back. So there's other ways we could talk about there, but I think that's a good starting point. So look for opportunities to get links from other sites back to your site. If you're creating the content, if you're basing that content on keywords that you found, if you're telling Google about it through Search Console, you've got maps fully filled out, you're getting reviews, and you're looking for opportunities to get links back to your site. There's other stuff we could talk about, but that's a big part of SEO. And you just have to give it time. It could take 6, 9 months, 12 months to get going. But yeah, that's really the recipe right there.
Okay, got you. So if you were to backlink from your own social media profiles, would that also qualify as like a legit backlink that would help boost your presence in Google's eyes?
It helps a little bit. I say a little bit because certain links like that, like Facebook, for example, they'll either put a note, what's called no follow on the link, or they'll disguise the link behind a redirect. So facebook.com/redirect. And so it doesn't provide as much like link juice, if you want to use that word. But to me, like every link is important, whether it's because you don't want to just, it starts to look fishy if you've got all these links that are passing SEO value. Like that's just not realistic. And so I think any link, in my opinion, at least, any link is any link from a reputable source is good. And plus, like if you think about a credible business, I mentioned not like in social media, I'm still on it. Most credible businesses, they have a social media presence with profiles that are filled out with links back to their site. So Google knows that a typical business that's an authority, they're going to have links to their site. They're going to have social media profiles. They're going to have a site with good content. And so it's just, it's more about just giving Google what they want, which is something good to rank, something relevant to rank.
Right. And I'll confide with you that, it's like I'm not huge on social media either. But I use it because it's a really powerful and useful tool. And one thing I recently discovered, which I think would be valuable for our audience, is that if you have a LinkedIn profile and you've filled that out, that might actually be the first thing that people find when they search for your services, right? And that's just something I discovered when I was searching for my own name or my own business. That's pretty much always the first thing that comes up for me. And have you noticed that with your clients as well?
That's such a really good point. I didn't think to mention that, because now we're going into sort of like reputation management, and which is kind of SEO to a degree, and that's really about owning the real estate of your name. Like, so I mentioned my morning upgrade business. So when I search for morning upgrade now, because I've been doing it for a couple of years, what shows up is, yes, of course, the website at the top, but then there's my podcast on iTunes, and there's various other like interviews that I've done. And so you want to make sure that when someone's searching for your name or your company, that you're giving Google stuff to rank that's good. So press releases, social media profiles, any podcast interviews you've done. Actually, I didn't think to mention that podcast interviews are another great link building tool, because typically when you are interviewed on another show, they create a show notes page with like a summary of the conversation, a link to your site. It's just like the way it's done. That's the way I do it too. And so that's a great way. It takes time, of course, to have conversations, but those can be sometimes some of the best links. And
Yeah, and it
so,
features you as an authority in whatever subject you're speaking about, right?
exactly. Yep, exactly.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So yeah, really appreciate you taking time to give this, great perspective and information for our audience on the subject of SEO and online presence. Um, Anything you'd like to share, like that you feel that we may have missed or that would be really valuable for our folks here?
I would just say it's going to sound like basic information, basic advice, but I just want to put it out there just in case it's not for anyone listening. If you're new to this or you just you don't know what you don't know, right? So mobile responsiveness of your site and the load speed of your site are very important. Like load
Mobile
speed.
responsiveness. What does that mean?
So like how well does your site work and look and function on a mobile device? If I have to like zoom in and like scroll, like most sites nowadays are mobile friendly, mobile responsive, but the degree of how friendly it is can vary. And so you want to make sure that the site is very easy to use on mobile. And that it loads fast. And there's different tools you can use like GTmetrix. Google has its own page speed tool. Webpagetest.org, I think, is another one. There's just Google like how fast is my site, and you'll see.
Gotcha.
But yeah, making sure your site loads fast and that it works very well on mobile. Those two things are very, very important, not just to SEO, but just to the basic usability of the site. And it's only going to get more important.
Right. Awesome. Thank you so much, Ryan. This has been wonderful. Thank you everybody for showing up. Thank you for checking out the recording. If you're listening to the recording, we have another one of these coming up. We're going to have a webinar interview with Naturopathic. She's a marketing specialist for all sorts of service-based, heart-based professionals. She has a lot of folks in the functional health space, and she's going to be talking about authentic marketing and alternative marketing methods to social media marketing, because I know a lot of folks like me and Ryan aren't necessarily like all about social media. I'm on there. You folks might actually see me banging away on LinkedIn, but if you want to find an alternative of getting traction with attracting clients without necessarily using social media, she's going to present some alternative options. I'm sure SEO and blogging is going to be part of that discussion as well. So that's the follow-up to this. Ryan, I'm looking forward to our interview on your podcast. What's the name of that podcast again?
It's called the Morning Upgrade Podcast.
Okay.
Morning Upgrade. And Bill, I just saw a question came in. I don't know if it's too late to
wonderful.
answer.
Yeah, we should nail that question. Let's see what we got here. So Kyle is indicating, I've tried to register with Google Business, but my account is not visible because it was disabled for not meeting guidelines. They do not tell why it is disabled or what guidelines are not met, and I cannot figure it out myself. I'm a remote coaching business, and that's just for context, and he has no physical location. Do you think it's worth pursuing to fix this for him in this case?
Yeah, so this is like this. I could, Kyle, the frustration of dealing with Google in this case is because sometimes they're very ambiguous. I think it's probably on purpose because they don't want to reveal their secret sauce. And so what I would do is there is a way to contact Google support. I wish I had the phone number off the top of my head and the link, but I don't. But if you just Google, Google My Business or Google Business Support, you'll find it. There's a way to like file a support ticket, request a callback. I will say that it does depend on the rep that you get. Some are more knowledgeable than others. Some are more helpful than others. Don't give up after the first one if you don't get what you want. Just keep on coming at them, and eventually you'll get someone that can help you. It depends what they're disabling you for. So I'd have to know more about how you set it up to give better advice on that. But if you feel like you did everything correctly, it might just be their bots. Oh, there we go. Thanks, Bill. It might be their bots incorrectly interpreting what you were giving them. And so then I would just hammer at support and see if you can get a concrete answer. Being that you are remote where, the nationwide is your client base, it's less help for you, Google Business. But like I said before, I think it's still worth doing because it's a good trust signal. You want to protect your brand when someone searches for your name or your business, that sidebar, you want to be able to own that, get reviews. It becomes a selling tool. And plus, in your local market, it'll still help you get some of that traffic. So I think it's still worth it. It just might be a frustrating experience, to be honest, but it's worth fighting for and see if you can get an answer from them.
Yeah, Google business can be huge, and it's free. I mean, it may take an investment of time and struggle to win that fight, but there's
Yeah.
no real monetary cost for having a Google business profile. Is that correct?
Right. And it's a second website. You could add photos. You could add, like I mentioned before, Google Posts where you can show off like your success stories and your content. And it just helps you protect and own your brand on Google. And so it is still important. So I would try to fight the fight and see what went wrong and how you can fix it.
Yeah, and those Google reviews are huge. If you have a great presence with Google reviews, that's maybe one of the easiest ways to establish authority. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, so that support number for Google Business, for those of you who may not be able to see the chat here, it's 1-855-593-8213. And I haven't tested that phone number, so use it at your own risk. Great. Any other questions? I don't want to cut anybody off. If anybody else has anything, feel free to throw it in the Q&A. Otherwise, in the meantime, Ryan, how would people find you? You have a podcast, you have an SEO business for helping folks. You want to throw out your contact information for us?
Yeah, I'll throw out both websites that I mentioned for both businesses. For the functional medicine SEO, it's nice and easy, functionalmediциneseo.com. And then it's there. Then my personal development, personal growth resource is called Morning Upgrade. That's morningupgrade.com. There you can get my book, you can listen to the podcast, read the blog content, some other stuff. I have a morning routine product as well. So that's a real passion project that I try to combine and interweave both businesses. It's really fun.
Love it. Love it. Thank you so much, Ryan. Okay. So I hope everybody enjoyed the presentation. Look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks with Naturopathic. We're talking about organic, authentic marketing strategies. Thanks again. Have a wonderful weekend. Take good care.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Bill.
Thank you, Ryan. All right. Cheers.
Cheers.